This is State Treasurer Dale Falwell. Thank you all for joining us for our 10:30 meeting of Ask Me Anything. Just give me a thumbs up, Ray, and others, if you can hear me. Good. Thank you. In recent days, the Federal Trade Commission announced its challenging patents held by Novo Nordisk for Ozempic and other weight loss drugs. And U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont has said that the Senate will hold hearings on the outrageously high price of weight loss drugs. There's been a lot going on with that. And then last week, as you may have read, we had an adverse opinion about a lawsuit that we're in federal court over. The Fourth Circuit is not considered to be a friendly circuit, generally speaking, but an 8-6 vote, an en banc panel is very unusual. And I think that vote reflects the fact that we continue to have a very strong case in that regard, and decisions will be made about whether to appeal that to the U.S. Supreme Court by our legal team. Lots of things going on at the Treasurer's office, and with that, I'll be glad to answer any question anybody might have.
He seems to be front and center. You want to call on him?
Sure. Ray, you have a question? Can't hear you. There you go.
Ray, you're still muted.
Can't hear you.
How about now?
Perfect.
Okay. We're hearing that in the negotiations between Novo Nordisk and Caremark, Novo has been serving up concessions to some degree on price, on rebates, and on what was it here?
Protocol.
The consideration of body mass index. So, we're
right.
Wondering what you just within the parameters of what you can say, we're wondering if you're seeing if you've seen movement by Novo toward y'all, and whether that movement is promising, shall we say.
Yeah, I'm not aware of all the things that are being discussed between the drug manufacturers and our PBM, CVS Caremark. I will say that from time to time, I do get disappointed in that things that Novo Nordisk may have offered, we never hear about. And then things that our PBM may have offered, we never hear about. So I'm sure there's a lot going on there. I started this conversation by talking about the fact that so many other people are looking at this topic, and I applaud that. I will say that in conversations with people in Washington, D.C. who are leading this investigation, I'll say this as strongly as I've ever said anything to any of you. Any public official who's unwilling to talk to anyone at any time on how to actually solve any important problem, including this one, should resign their offices. This is a serious issue, and I think that Senator Sanders' office has talked about the fact that if this were to ever be covered, I don't want to put words in his mouth, by Medicare, Medicaid, or possibly even both, we're looking at a $3 trillion price tag. Not hundreds of billions, but trillions of dollars. So this is a serious issue, and all we're asking State Health Plan on behalf of those that teach, protect, and serve is for this drug to be available to those that most need it. What we consider the level 3 obesity at equal to or lower price than what they offer it to people in their home country for. Follow up.
Hold on, catching up with here. Your comments about, being willing to talk to, to anybody or anything make me wonder if you're getting pushback from some within your party about singing from the same hymnal as Senator Sanders.
Well, I'm accustomed to getting pushback from my own party because I'm not a counterfeit conservative. The root word of conservative is to conserve. The root word of liberal is to liberate, which is to mean to set economically free. So any member of my party who wants to push back because I'm actually showing the courage to ask the right questions, then so be it. All we're trying to do is solve a problem. We have so many members of both parties who are only interested in attacking people and not attacking problems. And they do that because it's financially rewarding to them. And I'm becoming more convinced, unfortunately, in this time in our country's history, that there's a lot of people on both political parties who do not want to see problems solved because they make too much money on them not being solved. Was that more than you bargained for?
It's interesting, to say the least.
So, my point of saying that to you is that before Senator Sanders or anyone else started talking about this, I started using the word gouge. Before anybody started talking about this, years ago, I started talking about the cartels. These are not words associated with somebody from another political party. These are my words, and I stand by them. And as I've said repeatedly on these calls, whether it's high drug cost or high hospital cost or poor quality of hospitalization, this is a huge transfer of wealth from especially the lower and fixed income people of our state to these multi-billion-dollar corporations who disguise themselves as nonprofits. Follow up?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Lynn Bonner? Question?
No, none from me.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning. Laura?
Good morning, Mr. Treasurer. Thanks for doing this. Question for you regarding Caremark. At the last board meeting for the state health plan, it sounded like there was some heartburn about the PBM situation and that contract being extended or not being extended. Have you come to any further decisions about that? Can you make any guesses about what's ahead for Caremark?
Thank you, Laura. Number one, it's not usual for me to put a person like presented to us from the pharmacist from Morganton as an agenda item. But we felt like it was the right thing to do. And I appreciate her and all of her contemporaries coming into that meeting, talking about the issues they're facing. So the first order of business, Laura, is to fulfill the promise that I made to her and her counterparts in addressing the issues that she laid on the table that day, and to honor Judge Duke's motion that every one of her assertions and or questions or suggestions, that every one of those be addressed. So that's where our focus is right now. As far as CVS Caremark is concerned, as you observed, that room was standing room only with people from our vendors, insurance companies, pharmacy benefit managers, lobbyists, and liaisons. I think everybody realizes this is an important issue. And I'm as you know, a big fan of props. And when the pharmacist from Morganton, brought up actual receipts that demonstrated what really happens behind the scenes as it relates to reimbursement and what we're being paid, those are serious issues. I will also say that you probably should stay tuned for tomorrow. We are releasing another report that has to do a lot with drug costs. And I think you're going to be able to see even more evidence of what we're talking about. As I said earlier, people may not be getting the health care they deserve or taking the prescriptions that they need, not because of fear of the procedure itself, but the fear of the bill associated with that. And we cannot have a productive society where that is the focus when it comes to people not feeling good. And as far as the contract extension is concerned, I'll be sitting down with executive staff at the state health plan just to discuss those potential possibilities. But the fact is that, as I've said the whole time that I've been the state treasurer, or as a legislator, that I enjoy doing business with people, that what they say to us in negotiations is as important as what they sign their name to. Those are the types of folks that we have our best relationships with.
Why, I mean,
Follow
just to follow up, why do we have to go through a pharmacy benefits manager? I'm just curious, because there was a little bit of discussion in the meeting about what this particular addition to the framework adds or doesn't add to the value for constituents or members of the plan. And I'm not clear on sort of the background of that, if it's a state law or what, and I'm hoping you can help to clarify that.
Great question. We've had a pharmacy benefit manager since have been the treasurer and long before I was the treasurer. I'm not sure exactly what decade pharmacy benefit managers came into existence, but generally speaking, I think that with as large as our plan is and as big of a spend as we have, that this plan with previous treasurers, I know Treasurer Cowell, especially, and possibly even Treasurer Moore, had pharmacy benefit managers. Before I became the state treasurer, there was an instance of where I think a pharmacy benefit manager was chosen and then had to be relieved of their duties because they couldn't do the job. So this has become very complicated, and I think, Laura, that you should continue asking that question until you get an answer that satisfies you. And I totally agree with that. In addition to that, as you know, last couple of weeks, we put out an RFI, a request for information, where anyone who has an idea about how to actually solve these problems, whether it's PBMs or lower drug cost, that we would be willing to, that we're interested in what they have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa or Kelly?
Hi, Mr. Treasurer. This is Kelly Hooper from Politico.
Yes.
I was wondering, Novo Nordisk has said publicly recently that the state health plan has rejected multiple workable options presented to them since the board meeting in January. I'm just wondering, is that accurate, and what is your reaction to that statement? And then also, if you could just talk a little bit more about what the conversations have looked like between the state health plan, Novo, and the PBM as far as coverage of GLP-1s goes.
Number one is that I think that anytime that somebody says that we have rejected multiple offers, they should actually show you and show us, what those offers were and when those were rejected. So I think they're using words that, as I sometimes describe, is a distinction without a difference. Secondly, we are interested in partnering with Novo Nordisk. They have a track record of using inflammatory language like irresponsible. The person who ran the operations here in North Carolina for over 2 decades, I think in the last few months have been relieved of their duties. We take all this very seriously, and it's not just us. It's the state of Texas. It's the Mayo Clinic. I think you're going to start to see a lot of large employers who are saying they can no longer afford to be gouged by the price of this drug. It's none of that is really hurtful to me, but I will add that as the state treasurer, that I have put an inordinate amount of time over the last 3 years trying to help the city of Clayton meet its water treatment and water and sewer needs. And because the 2 biggest users of the Clayton wastewater treatment system are Grifols and Novo Nordisk. And we're talking about a project that originally started, if my memory's right, at around $101 million. That's now going to be over nearly $250 million. This is for a little town of Clayton. And as I said earlier, half of those wastewater needs are going to be used by, these 2 big employers, which we appreciate their presence. So, when somebody uses the word irresponsible, I wasn't irresponsible when I continued week after week and month after month, trying to get the city of Clayton to get a water treatment plant, which, by the way, may possibly be used to manufacture some of these drugs at Novo Nordisk in Clayton, to get that up on the table and get it financed. So I wear many different hats around the treasurer's office, but at the end of the day, the most important thing, no matter what hat I wear, is as a fiduciary and to be loyal and exercise a duty of care. And what that means, very simply to everybody on this call, is never putting myself or my interest ahead of the people that we're here to serve. Follow up.
Yeah, could you just talk about whether, has there been any progress on the talks or the negotiations on GLP-1s since January, or is it still sort of at a stalemate?
It's our goal to solve the problem, but it's still a stalemate. And when we have North Carolina Medicaid talking about covering this product, and they're a lot larger than we are, why should they care about the state health plan? When we talk about CMS and National Medicaid, possibly Medicare covering this product, why should they care about the state health plan? We're talking about a product that's in short supply. So if you've got all these potential buyers coming on that's going to increase the demand for your product and the product's already in short supply, why should they really, care about negotiating with us? But I think that you're probably in the next few weeks going to see some larger, more major employers talking about the fact that they're not going to cover this. I'm also interested in conversations and words that have been used in legislative oversight committees by folks at the North Carolina Medicaid system that reports to DHHS about them covering this and what it could cost. Because some of the back of the envelope estimates that I've heard, I'll be glad to buy that drug at that price if that's really the true price. And you may have listened into the call the other day, but when I asked one of the deputy directors of DHHS, who, when we were talking about this, I actually had a vial of Wegovy with me, and I said, the conversation kept circling back to who pays what portion of this drug when it's in Medicaid. That's all interesting to me. What I want to know is what they're paying for this vial of Wegovy. And if they're able to get this at negotiated prices, much less than what we're able to get for those that teach, protect, and serve, then we'll be glad to piggyback. We don't have a monopoly on all the good ideas. We will go anywhere, to try to solve this problem. And by the way, this is only the latest specialty drug. There are much more coming down the pike. And when Wegovy gets from being a drug that's administered through a shot, like what I'm holding up in front of the camera, to an oral drug, you're going to see a lot more demand for it. So, at the end of the day, as news has spread about the tough decision this board had to make to stop covering this drug, people come up to me and said, I'm able to buy that same drug for $400 in my concierge program. I'm buying that same drug for $300. And, we're just trying to get to the bottom of, A, is this drug being prescribed by people who, A, do not have a conflict of interest? B, is it being prescribed to the people that need it the most? And C, to make sure that we're getting the most favored price, given the volume of this drug that we've been purchasing. Novo Nordisk recently reported its Wall Street earnings, and I think everybody can go and read about, what those look like. I think I'm accurate in saying that the stock market value of Novo Nordisk, the value of the company's stock, is twice as high as the gross domestic product of the country that they're headquartered in. And back a few months ago, it was told to me that 2.6% of the North American revenues of this drug came just from prescriptions inside the state health plan. It doesn't matter what political party you're a member of, what gender you are, what race you are. Everybody understands that you cannot manage what you can't measure. And when you hear statistics like that, it's the reason that everyone is alarmed about the gouging that's going on. Follow up?
I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Hey, Laura. Oh, and
Hey
then
there.
Ray.
Hey there, sorry. I just wanted to take a step back from the GLP-1 drugs for a minute and talk a little bit about the fiscal situation of the state health plan. As the presentation pretty much clearly illustrated at the last board meeting, even with the GLP-1 drugs off the table, the plan is still not viable as it stands. And lawmakers clearly didn't give you what you said you needed in the last round. Last year. Even if they do, though, what is the plan here? I mean, obviously something's going to have to change because you guys are going into the red at some point in the next couple of years. In terms of being a fiduciary, what do you see as what's going to have to happen in order to keep this plan afloat?
Laura, great question. The fiduciary standards that have been in existence since for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years, is where the word fiduciary first developed. These fiduciary standards not only apply to me as the state treasurer and the keeper of the public purse, that fiduciary standard also applies anytime that you have a major funder to your plan. And the major funder to our plan is the North Carolina General Assembly through the appropriations process. They have the same legal fiduciary responsibility in funding the plan as we have. And when you use the terminology, which I completely understand, of not giving us what we asked for, they did not give us what we spent. They took money from the federal government that was used specifically meant to be used for COVID-related activities. We have COVID-related expenses, masks, shots, medicines, hospitalization costs. Our actuaries have scrubbed this both up one side and down the other, and we have not been reimbursed for our actual COVID-related expenses, even though the federal government has given money to the state of North Carolina for these expenses. And the other thing I want to add that you didn't ask me about, but I feel responsible for saying it. We have done everything that we possibly can inside the state health plan to keep this plan solvent without increasing family premiums for 7 years. In light of the General Assembly underfunding the plan, in light of COVID-related expenses, in light of the fact that we were able to cut hundreds of millions of dollars in administrative expenses out of this plan, in light of the fact that we negotiated a fantastic contract with Humana for our Medicare Advantage product, which had the potential of saving $1 billion over a 5-year period of time. And that is actually going to end earlier than we thought because of what you're also reading in the paper about Medicare Advantage programs. In light of all of that, as you correctly said, we're still running in the deficit. Now, some may criticize me and our state health plan, but I take responsibility for that because 5 or 6 years ago, we set out on a mission, which has not been completely successful. Clear pricing for the hospital organizations of this state to stop giving the middle finger to President Trump and President Biden and show people what things cost. Stop breaking their kneecaps. Still can't get medical debt deweaponization through the General Assembly, which would catapult North Carolina to number 2 in the country in terms of protecting consumers. And most importantly, we put an emphasis on properly compensating primary care physicians, physical therapists, and mental health specialists. I'm not a doctor, but I think there's pretty much agreement that those 3 entities and a couple of other smaller ones, those 3 entities are closest to the health and well-being of our state employees. And putting emphasis on the reimbursement rates of primary care physicians, which can keep people out of hospitals, physical therapists, which can keep people out of hospitals, mental health specialists, which can keep people out of hospitals, putting a proper payment structure in place to compensate those people was, I think, the right thing to do. And eliminating the cost of insulin and diabetes testing equipment 5 years ago. These are just an example, and I'm going to deputize the comm staff right now to work with the state health plan to put all this in a bullet point form for you about, what types of investments we've made in the plan to keep it solvent.
Okay, but quick follow-up. The question is still, what do you think is going to have to happen to keep it afloat? I mean, are we talking cutting benefits, raising prices, lawmakers giving more? I mean, it seems like you've gotten crosswise with some lawmakers at some times, which is why some things maybe didn't move forward. But nonetheless, I mean, you're looking at insolvency in a matter of whether it's 2 or 3 years fairly quickly. So, what do you think needs to happen in order to keep that from happening?
Well, we look forward to always partnering with the General Assembly. It's never my intention to be crossways, but as Coach K once said when asked about him getting crossways, sometimes on the basketball court, he said, there's some things that happen right in front of your eyes that are worth getting upset about. And I think that anytime that our plan is paying money out for expenses that we're not getting reimbursed for, when our sole fiduciary funder is getting reimbursed for those, I think that's worth getting mad about. I think that especially in this inflationary period, when we talk about freezing premiums, Laura, I don't know what's happened to your plan at WRAL, but we also did that without messing around with deductibles and copays, because that's how plans do these little things. They don't go up on premiums, but they go up on deductibles and copays. So we look forward to partnering with them. But at the end of the day, the General Assembly is the sole funder of this plan. And if we do not go up on, generally speaking, if we don't get the money that we need to run the plan and to keep our reserves in place for our massive unfunded healthcare liability, which some legislators don't think even exist. I can tell you I'm getting ready to have my meetings with Standard & Poor's and Moody's and Fitch's. And that will be a topic of conversation. So the General Assembly can say that these unfunded liabilities don't exist, but the people who rate our bonds, think they do, and the Accounting Standards Board thinks that they do. So at the end of the day, properly funding the plan will allow us to continue not to mess around with increasing copays and deductibles, and will allow us to not double premiums on state employees. I'm the first treasurer in the history of this state to actually put in a premium on individual employees. And I did that within the first few months I was there. The General Assembly always sort of complained that employees were not paying for individual coverage. I've made that happen. And people may say it's not enough, but I can tell you, especially on the family premium, when we have many of our state employees, possibly even many that I'm going to see 2 days from now at a funeral in Hickory, North Carolina, of one of our state employees. We have a lot of state employees between where I'm sitting and that funeral in Hickory who are having to work 1 week out of every 4 to pay the family premium associated with the largest healthcare purchaser in this state. These are all things that we've been trying to solve. If nothing else, Laura Ray.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly clarify the Clayton. Were you talking about the water treatment plant or the wastewater treatment plant? I think I heard both.
Wastewater.
Wastewater. Yeah, basically treating what comes out of those two pharmaceutical plants.
My memory's good, but I just think the last 5 years or 6 years, when you look at the towns of Johnston County, the county of Johnston County, we have approved hundreds of millions, maybe possibly even over $1 billion in things associated with water, fresh water and water treatment. There's a lot of different entities over there that are operating these plants. Anything else, Ray?
No, I'm good.
Anybody else have a question? I know there's a lot going on, and I appreciate all of you allocating the time to join us on our Ask Me Anything call. Thanks, staff, for making this jump up on the table, and we'll be glad to have you access us if you have any follow-up questions. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.